Hello, welcome to Citizens Forum. This is Tuesday, March the 1st, 2016. First part of Citizens Forum is always the Walt and Jack show. So, you know, Walt, I feel like I'm at a loss about where to go from here. You know, it's been just a crazy week in the world, it seems. There's really important issues happening left, right, and center. I mean, our community, our society seems to be under attack almost, and I think it's an internal attack from the corporations that I think run the country. And I'm not, I mean, we're always fighting these different, like I've got, you know, they're written down here, the climate change thing that's coming up in Vancouver in a week or so, the homeless camp, the high house prices, Site C, GMOs, Fukushima, refugees, the wars that are all over the place, the poverty, the pollution. And it's, I mean, I think I wish we had organizations that were focusing not on the symptoms, but to get to the heart of the matter. And I think the heart of the matter is we need a free press and we need more democracy. And I could be wrong, but I really think that if we had the free press, so the stories were being told in a different way, and if we had more democracy so that what people wanted actually meant anything in this great country of ours, then we'd start to move ahead. Because I think most people, like, for example, don't want their children to die because of climate change or the ongoing massive pollution of the planet. They don't want that. But nobody ever asks us. The corporations that run the show just keep moving ahead, doing what they want, and we pay the price. So I think those, and Bernie Sanders is showing it in the United States, that if you bring some of these messages forward, at least a message of more democracy and economic equality, there's a huge number of people out there who just want to hear that. It's in Canada too, but we have where's the leadership? And we have to be it, all of us.
Yeah, okay, you know, just to touch on the idea, I mean, in order to have a healthy democracy, I think you need access to information, to information, all the information around any particular issue. You know, the environmental protection side, the argument for development for economic reasons, a well-rounded sort of set of information that you can analyze. That's always important. I think the media plays a big role in that. Getting further back, you know, when I first came to Victoria, I went to university for a couple of years, and I really found out there was nothing there for me. I had an illusion. I thought that, okay, I'm going to go to university, I'm going to get some expertise in some area, and after a couple of years, I realized this is really a waste of time for me. So there's an information system that's called, you know, it's an educational system, it's a university that couldn't provide to me the sort of information I was seeking on the issues that I was interested in. And so there's a deficiency there at the university level for what they're teaching, obviously. You can say the same about public schools and so many other institutions that provide information to the public. All are ailing. All have suffered under a corporate agenda, in my opinion, too. That it's a prevailing ideology that we're dealing with. But I think we can fight through it. I really think people are fundamentally searching for the truth and are willing to take the extra steps and work to find out the truth of the matter. So I'm hopeful that we can do that. Now, Bernie Sanders is a good example. I think today is Super Tuesday.
Today is Super Tuesday.
So as we sit, we're going to really find out probably who's going to be the next president of the United States. You know, whoever wins these primaries, and we'll really be set up to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's a very exciting race.
Bernie Sanders is a great breath of fresh air, and I think on the other side you have Donald Trump was the breath of something, but I don't know what it is.
Well, to a lot of people, he is a breath of fresh air, and a lot of people really like what he says.
Well, then
And those are good people. You know?
Well, okay, I'm going to differ with you. I think that really is he represents a lot of bad things, in my view. Ignorance, racism, xenophobia. He's jingoistic, sexist, and you can add all your own adjectives, because for me, he represents something that's really fortunate that that type of a character could rise up and really be a contender for as a president of the United States.
It's a sad state of affairs in the United States.
Yeah, and that could be a reaction to Bernie Sanders trying to steal the populist vote a bit, but it's really a low-level thinking type process when you look at Donald Trump. There's not much going on there. Bernie's offering some fundamental change, and he's really, talking about the truth of the issue around the economic imbalances in the United States and the who holds the power, Wall Street, and all that. He's telling the truth. I think that's very, very important. And I just end up by saying I think he won't win this primary. I don't think he'll win, be the next president. But I think that in the next election, he's created a social movement that I think they can't stop, and that's what's so important. Somebody's going to come along and pick up where Bernie leaves off and keep demanding democracy, and I think it can happen.
Yeah, his popularity shows that there is a huge thirst and a yearning for somebody who is putting forward that message.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are seeing that. Some of them very honest and some of them not so honest, and everybody will, sort of make their move. The entire system is so corrupt. I mean, in Canada as well. I was talking to somebody just before we came here about climate change, and there's this climate change conference in Vancouver very soon. I don't even know when. I mean, it's not big news, even though it's basically the future of the planet that's at stake here, I think. And what this fellow said was, why doesn't Justin Trudeau, our prime minister, just get on television and tell people what the scientists are saying? Because then, I mean, it is a very, very scary scenario. It's not a scenario where we should be about to spend $100 million on a new interchange at Mackenzie. We've got to immediately refocus everything away from the insanity of what we're doing and start to move towards a simpler, less consumption-oriented society. And the car has to be number one to be reduced and disappear. It just has to be. So public transit is the way to go. And we've got the Bank of Canada that can fund the public transit we need, but nobody will even talk about that. I mean, I would love Justin Trudeau to just make YouTube videos or get a couple of minutes on the CBC every once in a while and start talking to us about the important issues, because it's like he's disappeared. They've done some good things, but we need so much right now. And I would love to hear from him, not via the media and the media editing and choosing what's going to be said. I'd like Trudeau to start to talk to us directly, and because of the technology, he can do it. And I really wish he would.
I think it's a great idea, but I don't think it's going to happen in the CBC because it's dominated by Harper appointees right now. And the CBC, if you watch the CBC News, it really leaves you wanting. You really know there's a lot more to these stories than what they're saying. And it's what they don't say about a story that's important in my view. And I think the Harper regime still runs the CBC, and I think it's a huge, huge problem for us because it's a Canadian broadcaster. It's supposed to be our broadcaster. The rest of the corporate news, there's no surprises. We're not going to come to expect anything other than what we've always gotten, but hopefully the CBC can turn around. I also think the Supreme Court is heavily weighted towards a very conservative agenda due to the appointees, the Harper appointees. It's more subtle, perhaps, but some major decisions could be made that may not be entirely in the favor of the public and the people at this time due to this very conservative Supreme Court. These things don't get shaken off easily governments come and go, but some of these appointments last for 20, 30 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, how do we begin? And it's to talk about beginning now at this. But I think we've got to. I mean, difficult times are ahead. That's for sure. Big change. So I think the way the country can weather big change is to have an honest democratic government that really represents the public and the public interest. And I think there is a public interest that most of us could agree with. The problem is that it's the 1% of the 1% have more than 50% of the votes, it seems. They have so much power, this small group of extremely powerful and wealthy families. We don't even know who they are. And a lot of them aren't Canadian. Because if you look at the group that I think really rules Canada, they just changed their name. They were the Canadian Council of Chief Executives. They just changed their name to something else. I mean, half of them are just the big American and European and Asian corporations, right? It's this massive power structure in the middle of us that we don't even know about. They basically own all the big media in the country, they're members, and they control the politicians as well. So, I mean, to me I mean, it would be nice to have a group that is focusing right on that point of the pyramid. The whole system is corrupt, it's not democratic, we don't have a free press, we have a small group of corporations that rules everything. What are we going to do?
Yeah, in the relationship between corporations and public relations firms and governments, and I've looked at that over the last 3 or 4 years, and this is where we're not hearing about the influence. I had an impression that a public relations firm is sort of people you go to if you got a problem with your image or something, and they do an advertising campaign. But what I found when I started looking into it was that public relations firms are the corporate elite. You don't have to draw a distinction between their interests or what they do or say. They are the corporate elite, and they are the arm of the elite that's used to send information to the public. Now, a lot of that is sent to us through our own governments. And when these massive omnibus bills are written, they're written by public relations firms. They just come and plunk it on the desk and say, okay, Stephen Harper, these are your marching orders. This stuff doesn't appear out of nowhere. Somebody writes it. So the influence is so powerful. And we're not seeing that as a public. We don't realize that the same public relations firms are running all the political parties.
That's a very important point.
So the message is there. We'll leave them unnamed for today, but the message is that the same corporations, the same public relations firms are giving every party their marching orders. In the last federal election, the play was perfect, how that panned out. Of course, we saw what happened in BC here and in Alberta. We saw the corporate elite get what they want with the NDP government in Alberta. I think they got what they wanted with Trudeau, really, because sitting in the wings is the Conservative Party that hardly lost any support from the previous election. They only lost, I think, 250,000 votes.
But that's their way of looking at it, and you're right.
Yeah.
From now on, I'm more interested in what's our way of looking at it. What is the public's way of looking at it? What do we want? Don't we want to have a voice? I think we do. Shouldn't our governments at all levels be coming to us and doing polling on it, and then telling us what the polls are saying, and then acting on the basis of the polls? But plus, you've got to throw in information, honest information and education, so people have a grasp of what the issues are.
Elizabeth May has a great idea, not her idea, but something she does participate a lot in her town hall meetings.
Yes.
And I really think that's such a great way to go. Meet with people on a regular basis, see what the heck's on their minds. Things get hashed out in those meetings and get formulated. And even the person that comes with an idea of a concern could have it shifted just by the interaction with the people in the hall. I think that's the sort of level that we got to work at as individuals meeting and speaking and trying to formulate our ideas. And with the mass media and large media, we're not really given that opportunity. We're basically just given a line every day in the newspaper or on the news, and we're left all on our own to try to figure out where the BS is coming from.
Okay, so let's say that begins to happen, and I think it should. So basically, Elizabeth May has just town hall meetings on an ongoing basis, maybe once a month or more, and she just meets with voters, and I guess they talk about issues, question and answer. I've never been to one.
Yeah.
So let's say we begin to formulate a consensus on some issues. The next step is that doesn't matter, because the power structure has no interest in what we have to say. So let's say, for example, Site C. Let's say the majority of people in BC don't want Site C. They don't care. You know, the corporations don't care, the politicians don't care, the media doesn't care. And so, and they never talk about it. I mean, Site C is like a non-issue. It's only like $10 billion, a huge, just a vicious bullying assault by the provincial government on the people of this province.
And on the people of Peace River.
And the people of the Peace River, they're getting hammered.
And that power is going, it's not going to consumers. It's not going to lighten up our burden. It's to ship power off to mining interests in the north, which is mines that we don't need. And cutting the tops off of mountains, mining is, like we saw in the Imperial Mines disasters, what we get from this type of production. But I think there's the answer is in participation. I think it's kind of a kicking and screaming thing. We're going to have to get in there and fight for everything we get.
Well, that's it.
That's the way
We're going to have to get in there and fight for everything we get. And I think more and more people have got to start fighting harder and harder, even though so many already are.
Yeah.
But maybe we have to really focus on the fundamental issues, which are we don't have a free press, and I think everybody has to know that. And just the story you get, that we all get told, that I used to believe, I believed it my whole life until not that many years ago. The story that we are always told is simply the corporate story. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the truth. It's just the story they want to put out. Television, newspaper, radio, the movies, the books, whatever they control. And just people have to keep that in mind at all times, which would be a big step forward if we all did.
You can't quite paint it with a whole brush. I mean, I was reading over the Natal Kurodi case, this poor couple that have been framed by the RCMP, in my opinion. And the evidence, if you actually read the Vancouver Sun and read those articles, they're quite well done. The case is quite laid quite well. That looks like they were framed. Really, it does, and it just based upon the facts. But I have to say, in my opinion, after every time I say that. But the thing is, so you can get onto a story and you can get some pretty good facts. You just have to know when you're not getting them, when you're being sold a bill of goods, and when the coverage, for instance, of the sewage treatment system here in Victoria. Why are we in such a muddle here? Is because the media has kept us in a muddle, have not said the plain facts of the case here. And if we knew that, in an ongoing basis, it wasn't for some of the guests that come on this show, I think the public would be in total confusion.
Well, even with the guests that are coming on the show, I'm in total confusion. I have no idea what's going on right now with it, and yet there's a big faction that wants to make a decision literally almost tomorrow.
Yeah, just an aside, I was in contact with Mayor Helps about some of the issues around that, and especially with this deadline. Why are they not asking for an extension in the deadline? Her reply was, through email, was that they won't ask for an extension for a deadline to the deadline until they have something solid to present to the government. But the problem is they only have 3 or 4 weeks. They have these brand new ideas it's going to be impossible for them to come up with something solid in 3 or 4 weeks. So she's now got us into a catch-22 situation where there's no way out of this. They're not going to make the deadline. So what are they going to do? Or are they going to try to desperately recommend some proposal over something else and desperately hope that it's going to fly? It's not going to work. The public are going to reject it. So they've gotten themselves into a pretty bad scrape, I think.
And worse, they've gotten us into a pretty bad scrape. You know, it's unfortunate. That's on the city level. What we see, happening on the provincial and national and international level. I just think we've got to start to do better. I'm not sure why we can't. I'm sure that we can do better than this.
Well, we can't let them away with it. That's the thing, is that we got to put politicians' feet to the fire. When these contradictions come up the way they are right now.
But I'd say more important than putting their feet to the fire is taking away some of their power.
Yeah.
I mean, so we've got to rewrite the rules. We need a democratic revolution. That's what we need, a democratic revolution in Canada. And,
well, the problems we're seeing with this is, of course, the CRD is an organization that's untouchable because they're not elected.
And we're out of time.
There you go. Every week I'm going to say that.
Thank you all. Thanks for watching this segment of Citizen Forum.